The most important point is that a master knows when not to use it. You cannot solve everything with a tool. You have to know when not to use it. It's equally important.
Yeah. Agreed.
This episode is brought to you by our friends at Square. Millions of Square sellers use the Square App Marketplace to discover and install apps they rely on daily to run their businesses. And the way you get your app there is by becoming a Square App partner. Let me tell you how this works. As a Square App partner, you can offer and monetize your apps directly to Square sellers in the app marketplace to millions of sellers. You can leverage the Square platform to build robust e-commerce websites, smart payment integrations, and custom solutions for millions of businesses. And here's the best part. You get to keep 100% of revenue while you grow. Square collects a 0% cut from your sales for the first year or your first 100 Square referred sellers. That way you can focus on building and growing your Square customer base, and you get to set your own pricing models. You also get a ton of support from Square. You get access to Square's technical team using Slack. You get insights into the performance of your app on the app marketplace. And of course, you get direct access to new product launches. And all this begins at changelog.com/square. Again, changelog.com/square.
Let's do it. It's go time.
Welcome to Go Time, your source for diverse discussions from around the Go community. Subscribe today at gotime.fm and follow the show on Twitter. We are at GoTimeFM. Special thanks to our partners at Fastly for delivering Go Time super fast all around the world. Check them out for yourself at fastly.com. That's all from me. Here we go.
Yes, it is indeed a Go Time. I will be your host today. I am Johnny Borsico, and joining me is the author of the book Mastering Go, Mr. Michalis Tsoukalos, and hopefully I've done your name justice.
Yes.
Awesome. Basically, so I became aware of your book, I don't know, maybe, or rather the first edition of your book, about maybe a year or two ago. And then it seemed like one of those sort of very thick sort of reference manuals. I was like, okay, this is one of those things you kind of get on your shelf, like old school. You know, you buy those giant tomes and you put them on your shelf and you use them as a reference every once in a while, because nobody reads a book front to back these days. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe I'll put this book on my shelf. Lo and behold, I never happened to do that. And then the publisher reaches out to me and says, hey, would you like a review copy of this book? And I'm like, sure. Yeah, it's not like I don't have a dozen other things to do, but hey, I'm a sucker for, reviewing Go books. And I was looking forward to this one as well. And I got the book in the mail, started going through it. And I was like, yeah, I was nodding in a few places. I'm like, yep, that's how I would explain that. And in other places, I'm like, okay, yeah, that's a different way of explaining it. But, the thing is, as I was flipping through the book, and I certainly looked at, different areas of the book to see how you explain things and, see how, okay, are there some tricks and tips and things that I can, steal from you is to explain certain things as well, in teaching people Go. And when the opportunity came up, for, I think I was like talking about it on Twitter or something like that, and you chimed in, and I'm like, okay, so, he seems friendly enough. Why don't I just have him on the show? Right. So we can actually talk about the book, but not just about the book, but really the title, basically I find intriguing. And I wanted to sort of talk about, right, what it is like to master Go, right? Basically, we're going to go meta with this, right? But yeah, for those who don't know who you are on Twitter. Twitter handle is MACTSOUK, and you're a systems engineer and a technical writer, right? So obviously the writing is important. You're writing books and everything. This is the third edition of your book. I wanted to start out with basically, I'll give you a chance to sort of add any flavor you want to your intro. Like, what else have you been up to?
Okay. So hello, everyone. Thanks for listening to us. And Johnny, thanks for the opportunity to come to your podcast. I mean, I'm a Unix person. I like Unix. I don't know why, but I like Unix. So, and system stuff. And I used to be an Oracle DBA, and I used to work with Cisco iOS, operating system of Cisco, not the Apple version of iOS. And Unix and, setting up SendMail, DNS with Bind and all these things that, some people find miserable, but I really like them.
Yeah, I used to be a rite of passage, set up your own mail server and everything, your own DNS. Yeah.
Yeah, send mail with M4, configuration files and that things. And working with versions of Unix other than Linux, like the IBM version AIX or the Hewlett-Packard version of Unix, HPUX, and Solaris, my favorite one. So I'm a systems person. I like Unix. And I like writing software. So every time I see a systems programming language, I like to try it.
Okay. Yep.
I like C very much, but C is not perfect. I don't like C++ though. It's too complex for me. So the idea was to find something that I can write system software, but without having to worry about, C stuff. That's how I started, getting interested in Go. And when I learned that Rob Pike was involved, that was a big plus. So I started working more with Go and learning Go more. And after some time, I just wanted, to write the book that I would like to read when I was learning Go. But the thing is that first I wrote a series of articles for a computer magazine in the UK. I don't know, 10 or or maybe 12, I don't remember. A series of articles that at the end, became something like the table of contents of the book. Because, you have to prepare. And that's how it started getting involved with Go. You can't trust a programming language too early, but you have to, you have to work with it, see how it goes, and see if you want to keep working with it.
Right. Yeah, I definitely agree with that sentiment. The fact of the matter is, when you say, hey, you wanted to basically write a book that you'd have liked to learn, Go with, the approach you took with the book, I definitely didn't think this was a beginner book, right? And I think that's something that usually when I give references to people for learning material, right, I usually ask them, like, what level are you at? Are you an existing programmer who's learning to pick up a new language, or are you brand new to programming, or are you basically a diehard functional programming developer, or are you as your preferences, right? And when I picked up this book, the first place I went is in the intro. It basically says, okay, who is this book for, right? And basically, right then and there, it says, hey, this is an intermediate book, right? So then I was like, okay, great. That means when I start going through that book, I'm not going to see things like, this is what a conditional is, right? It'll just say, hey, this is how Go does conditional, right? Or things like that, of that nature. So when I went through the book, and basically once I understood sort of the frame of reference that you were using to actually write the book, then the sort of the gripes I might have had with it, right? I started basically saying, well, okay, so if Mihalis is making these sort of these assumptions about the reader, right, then this is a lens with which I have to look at this book and ingest some of this book, right? So I think definitely something I want to sort of put out there, right? And a lot of times folks just pick up a book and they'll give a review and not really understanding sort of basically who the book was targeted for, right? If you're a beginner, you pick up this book, yeah, you'll still learn a lot. But there's some things that basically, that you're not going to go deep into, right? There's some language features that you dive deep into without having to explain the background on them, because you assume that the reader is coming in with a sort of a basic understanding of at least what Go is and what Go does, right? So that was the sort of the approach I took with the book. And for those who are looking to pick it up as well, that's what they should expect. That said, I kind of wanted to give you a sort of a chance to sort of narrate a little bit on sort of yes, this is a book that you would have liked to have had, but now that you've been working with Go for a while, right? Obviously, you're going to have a biased answer for this, but do you believe a book like this, right? Maybe not necessarily your book, but a book like this, right? It's sort of the right entry point for somebody who's maybe coming from another language and looking to get into Go, right? Is this a book for just learning Go, period, or are you targeting sort of a one level deeper, right? Not just for the person who's looking to pick up Go, but as you mentioned, you like systems programming, right? Will a systems programmer find this book, this Go book in particular, a lot more their speed, or should they look at something else more targeted at systems programming?
It depends. Generally speaking, if you have some experience with programming, you should pick up mastering Go very very quickly because, you have to have some experience. If you have the experience, then you can work with it very, very easily because programmers know that the key point to learning something is practice.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, some things we find them difficult and we have to look again. And other people find other things difficult and they have to look them multiple times in order to understand them. With Go, I mean, one thing that surprised me with Go is that you didn't have the child and fork things that you do in C.
Mm-hmm.
It took me a while to understand it and understand that I have to work with Go routines instead. You have to practice to understand that. But I mean, in order to have, to look for fork, you have to know about fork. So if you know
Mm-hmm.
fork, then you can understand what is going on there.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I think that the key point is practice. If you practice, then if you want to practice, you will be okay. And the good thing with the book is that even I use it as a reference sometimes, many times, because you can't remember everything.
That must give you some special kind of pride to be using your own book as a reference.
Yes. This is a good point, not as a pride, but as a thing that you can, it is useful. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
It's not a pride because I have read many books and I have used them as a reference as well. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Many people have done that,
Mm-hmm.
but it's good to find it useful because, you cannot remember everything.
Right.
You can't have everything in your mind.
Right. Yeah, Google-driven development is a thing. I partake in Google-driven development myself, so no shame in my game, right? Nobody can remember everything and the nuance of everything. And every once in a while, I'll still go to, one of my favorite resources in the Go community is gobyexample.com, for example. Gobyexample.com is a great resource that I regularly reference, right? Even to this day, after having been doing Go for like 5 years or something, I'll be like, okay, how do I initialize this again? Or how do, what's the technique for doing this again? Like usually, like one of the things I constantly refer to is how do I properly seed for randomization, right? I always have to go look up, okay, what's the package to ran something, seed, whatever, right? Like these things that, even though you use them frequently, like, sometimes it's okay, what's the syntax or what is this type that I use all the time that I need to learn a little bit more about? What is this package instance library that I've used a dozen times and I've only ever tried one or two functions from this package, and what else does it offer, kind of thing, right? So I think this is sort of a continuous sort of a journey, right, of mastering Go, which is something I definitely want to get to and talk about in a bit, sort of at the philosophical level. What does it mean to master Go? But this is a 650-page book. So again, it's a chunky book, right? Lots of topics covered. What do you think was the most sort of interesting parts for you to research and write about?
The Go garbage collector.
Ooh.
I really enjoy reading about that and learning about it, and then, writing about that. I really enjoy it. And I also enjoyed lots of external libraries like Viper and Cobra and Zine and Gorilla. I really liked because they extend the language in a good way. But especially Cobra and Viper are really helpful. And as I'm working with some REST APIs, I use Gorilla, Mux, and I'm trying also to learn Zine to understand what their differences are and which one is better for what job. I mean, that's the experience part. It's one thing to learn about something, but it's another thing to be able to choose based on, on facts, or that's the difficult part.
We are going to ship in 3, 2, 1.
I'm Gerhard Lazu, host of Ship It, a show with weekly episodes about getting your best ideas into the world and seeing what happens. We talk about code, ops, infrastructure, and the people that make it happen, like Charity Majors from Honeycomb.
We act like great engineers make great teams, and it's exactly the opposite, in fact. It is great teams that make great engineers.
And Dave Farley, one of the founders of Continuous Delivery.
Start off assuming that we're wrong rather than assuming that we're right. Test our ideas, try and falsify our ideas. Those are better ways of doing work. And it doesn't really matter what work it is that you're doing. That stuff just works better.
We even experiment on our own open source podcasting platform so that you can see how we implement specific tools and services within changelog.com, what works and what fails.
It's like there's a brand new hammer and we grab hold of it and everyone gathers around. We put our hand out and we strike it right on our thumb. And then everybody knows that hammer really hurts when you strike it on your thumb. I'm glad those guys did it. I've learned something.
Instead, yeah.
I think that's a very interesting perspective, but I don't see that way.
Okay.
It's an amazing analogy, but I'm not sure that applies here. Listen to an episode that seems interesting or helpful, and if you like it, subscribe today. We'd love to have you with us.
Speaking of the sort of the research and writing process, how long did the at least the first edition, right? So I'm assuming you've been sort of with each edition, you're not rewriting everything, you're just updating a few parts, some things that have changed, maybe some idioms have changed and whatnot. Roughly how long did it take you to publish the first version, to write the first version?
Given the experience that I had with the Arctics and another book that I have written for PACT is the Go Systems Programming, which helped a lot. It's one edition, it's the first book.
Mm-hmm.
It took me, and a lot of preparation though, it took me 6 to 8 months, but with a lot of preparation, you cannot start from zero and expect to have the book ready in 6 months. But a lot of preparation, a lot of code. I mean, you have to have some code, ready.
So did you enjoy, like in my mind, right, having collaborated on book projects and things, in my mind, there's the thing that I'm writing about, and then there's the writing about the thing that I'm writing about, right? Those are very, very different disciplines, very different skill sets, right? Writing about something and doing the thing are very different things, right? I can go all day and feel like I know what I'm doing, but the process of writing, right? Even if, I've written before, writing a book and sort of having to go working with an editor, working with people that are going to give you feedback on the writing process, the tools and resources that you use as a writer. These things are not sort of your day-to-day typical programmer tool, right? There's always sort of a learning process that's also taking place with regards to the act of writing a book, or the act of creating a training or a course, or the act of creating something for relaying and conveying information to another human being, right? That in itself is a separate skill set that you have to develop. I wonder how you feel about that skill set, having gone through it a few times. How do you feel about that?
For this skill set, the articles that I'm writing for computer magazines have helped me a lot, because for the article you have to present something and you have a limited space. So you have to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And that helps a lot. So I'm trying to follow the same approach. As I told you before, you cannot remember everything. If I read something afterwards, I try to be sure that it makes sense, at least to me, and then to the readers, because I try, what they say, write for your friends, but edit for your enemies.
Oh, I've never heard that one before. I'm going to use that.
So when I'm editing, I'm really, I'm trying to edit and be a hard judge for my own writing. And that, I think that helped me a lot with magazines, but also for the books. But, have in mind that I have written some articles for magazines that I'm not very proud of. It's not perfect. It's a process.
Right.
You don't begin perfect. It's a process. You learn and you make mistakes, and then you make more mistakes. You correct something and, you try. We're not perfect. We're just, work in progress.
Don't expect to have something like good, ready to ship the first time around, the first go around, right?
Yeah.
I mean, which sounds very much like the engineering process as well, right? You never quite get something right the first time. That's why we have, sort of even idioms around the act of writing software, right? Write a test, you get a failure, we make the test pass, and rinse and repeat, right? Like we even have like a mnemonics and things like around these things. So I think we shouldn't expect any different, right? From a different kind of creative process. It's just ones that you're not writing code. Although I must say I'm envious of it, because, I'm sort of picking your brain on this whole thing, because I too want to write books on Go and whatnot. And I'm like picking your brain and say, okay, well, what should I run away from? If I were to take on such a project, what should I run away from or watch out for? What are the pitfalls to taking on sort of a writing project? Not necessarily exclusively about Go, but really about any task of this nature. Like, basically you're teaching people about how to use a tool, this tool being a programming language. What do you think some sort of the biggest takeaways for you were about writing this book and creating this project?
the key to writing the book is to enjoy the process first, because if you don't enjoy the process, it's difficult to. The second is that you have to think the reader, as a friend, not as money, but as something that you're trying to help and, just help. Be gentle, try to explain, and don't assume that something that is easy for you, it should be easy for the other people, and vice versa. I mean, sometimes you have to explain something twice, maybe. It's a process. You have to enjoy the process. And once you enjoy the process, then everything becomes easier. And the other thing that I told you before, that, write for your friends and edit for your enemies. That's you should be you should edit hard for your own good. I mean, that's the way to do. You have the skeleton, you have the text, but you have to edit hard.
Right.
I'm still learning that. I really enjoy books like the C programming language or the Unix environment, the Unix programming environment. They are, they have the necessary thing only.
Right. Everything you need, nothing you don't.
Yeah, and they have written these books with Troph and Unix tools, and that's really amazing.
Yeah.
Not even LaTeX.
Yeah, not even those modern tools that we have. Yeah, that is amazing. That is amazing.
And they have created classic books.
Yep.
Without, just for the love of it.
Indeed. Yeah, I always tell folks that based on all the publishers I've talked to, and having been part of book projects and everything else, I'm like, okay, people who do this, it's not done for money. This is definitely a labor of love. The advance that you get really is not, if you were to map that to your hourly wage, whatever you get now with your employer or consulting, whatever it is, the amount of time you put in, it wouldn't come close. When you do this, because it's a labor of love, it's not something that, unless you have a book that's immensely popular, whatever it is, and you make bank, and that's fine. But the vast majority of people writing technical books like this, it is really just to share something out with their community and for the love of it. I can definitely appreciate that. So again, the book is called Mastering Go, and I wanted to talk about what we believe mastering Go like today, right, looks like. If somebody was started out saying, hey, you know what, I'm going to pick up this language, right, and I want to master it, right? What does that journey look like for somebody who's basically, starting today and saying, I want to master this language? What are the things they need to look out for? What are the approaches that they should have? Like, what should they expect?
Look, my book is here to help people not master Go, but like Go. If you like Go and you use it, you are going to master it. The thing that master thing is their marketing stuff, mainly. You cannot master something, but
right.
No book will help you master anything.
Right.
It's like swimming. You cannot master swimming by reading about swimming. You have to write and you have to swim. Yes. So I just try to make people love Go, understand what they can do and what they can't do with Go, and where Go is what their advantages and disadvantages of Go, and then go out and write software. That's the key. Without practice, you won't do anything. I have been inspired by the C programming language, by the book The C Programming Language. I have been inspired by the book The Unix Programming Environment, by the Stevens books, the Advanced Programming in the Unix Environment series of books, or the TCP/IP, the Network Programming books by Stevens. These books were my inspiration. They didn't teach me everything, but they inspired me to write things. I have written an FTP client in C a long time ago, which was, it was pretty challenging, but rewarding. That's the idea.
Yeah, you're going to learn by bumping your head against things and, researching and figuring out how it's done. Yep. That's really the key to mastering anything, right? So you have to keep doing it, right? For me, whenever I hear the term used, master this, master that, like, I'm like, yeah, like you said, this is marketing. Yeah, I get it. But to me, at some point, I believe you can reach what we can consider the realm of mastery. Like when somebody can present a problem and then say, hey, how would you approach this in Go? And immediately ideas can start popping in your head, and oh yeah, I could use a buffer for this. I could use some Go routines for that. I'm gonna communicate with over this channel. So immediately in your head, you start thinking, okay, how can I approach this, right? So I think sort of getting to these ideas, right, to flow into your mind at a rapid pace. Like, to me, I think that is what shows sort of a sign of mastery.
Exactly.
As you become so comfortable with the language that it's no longer a matter of, okay, how do I piece together this syntax? But I have a problem that I want to solve. I want to go from problem statement to, possible solution and something that I can test, and not having to worry about the actual writing of the syntax, right? You can't type fast enough because the language at this point, it becomes your pen, like you're writing it down. So you have the idea in your mind and you basically just trying to get your hand, your physical hand to keep up with your mind, right?
Yes,
so
exactly.
To me, when you've mastered Go, or when you're reaching the level of mastery, I think that's when right? When you can the language sort of fades away, right? It gets out of your way, right? And it's just about now communicating, right? Your design or your idea, your plan, communicating that and bringing something to life, right? That's where I think if somebody's looking for that signal that you can recognize in your own self, how good am I with this thing, right? I think you have to kind of ask yourself, how often do I have to reference basic concepts? How often do I have to look up some documentation on something I use often enough? How often do I have to? So, that's how I know I still have a lot to learn about Go, because I'm still looking up some basic stuff sometimes, right? I'm like, okay, yeah, I've been doing it for a while.
Me too, yes.
But I expect, hopefully, right, if I'm lucky, I'll still be doing it, for years and years to come. So I expect that sort of an ease, right, of just using the language and it sort of kind of fading away as a tool and not really thinking about it too much. I expect that to come, in another, 5, 6, 7 years, right? So I expect it to be a long journey. Personally, that's why I love Go, because can I stick with this language for a decade? Can I use this language and be happy using it, right, for a decade or more, right? To me, that's going to give me enough time to get to the mastery level. And that's the journey I'm on, right? Like, can I spend a decade on this language?
The most important point is that a master knows when not to use it. You cannot solve everything with a tool. I mean, you have to know when not to use it. It's equally important.
Yeah, agreed. So obviously you've been a part of the Go community for a while. Personally, I'm big on the Go community overall. I think, the technology, but the people is what makes it fun. I'm interested in kind of knowing, do you have any sort of stories about the community or people that, some of your favorite Gophers or anything like that? Do you have anybody in the community you want to give a shout out to? However you want to do that. But I just wanted to ask at the very least.
Lots of people writings have helped me a lot, and especially the official Go blog is really helpful. And I have read many things from Matt, who is not here with us today, and Bill Kennedy has helped me a lot. His writings are very, very good, and he's always ready to help and willing to help people. And
right.
And the community is really. I mean, I don't know if other programming language have such a an active and helpful community.
Yeah, I totally agree. These are definitely some of my favorite people as well. I happen to also have the distinct pleasure of co-hosting this podcast with Matt every once in a while.
Yeah,
along with my fantastic other co-hosts that sort of grace the mic here every once in a while. And then, again, that for me, that's part of the joy, right? I get to hang out with people that share this love, and basically we want the community to be a welcoming one, a friendly one, a helpful one, right? So we try to live that, and hopefully, as people new to the community, come in and they feel that love, right? They feel that welcome, and they stick around, right? So I usually say, pretty much at every year we have a GopherCon, which is the big sort of official, I'd say the biggest Go conference that we have year round. And over the years, we've gotten a lot more conferences, spread throughout the world as well. But GopherCon is sort of the big one, and the one that's usually gets a lot of people sort of showing up on site and everything. It's been due to the pandemic. We've had to do it online the last couple of years, but it's going to be in person again this year.
Oh, yes, that's great.
So I am looking forward to that. I can't tell you how much I'm looking forward to that, to see people that I haven't seen in quite some time or only online here and there. But yeah, usually at GopherCon, I usually see the makeup of the audience. It's usually consistently there are more Go developers, brand new folks to the Go community than there are veterans, right? This means that there are more people coming into the community, right, than there are people, that have been doing it for a while, every year consistently. So that means Go still has a lot of time, a lot of growth in front of it. We're just going to continue to attract a ton of new people into the community. And to me, it's important that with every layer of growth, right, every ring in the tree, if you will, people that come in and that we add to the community, that we continue to sort of carry on that sort of that kindness, right? Be nice to people, be helpful, like all of these things that basically this community sort of has as core values. So we definitely want that to sort of keep growing along with the number of people that we have coming into the community. So to me, that's huge. All right. So obviously, you play your own role in that, in creating learning materials and interacting with people online. So definitely you're part of that. So on behalf of the community, I say thank you.
Thank you.
I did want to ask a couple more questions, and then we're going to switch it over to unpopular opinions. Hope you brought an unpopular opinion. Yeah. Nice. Obviously, Go is not the only language you've used. Obviously, you've done some C and whatnot. Even built an FTP client in C. Kudos. You should do that in Go and see and compare notes and see like, okay, what was that experience like? But anything else that you're actively using today and learning about today beyond just Go and old school C?
I'm using Python a lot nowadays because I'm doing some research things with time series and stuff, and Python is really good at that.
Okay.
Big data and things.
Okay.
For the first time, I wrote Java last year. I don't like Java, but I had to.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's not a bad programming language, but it's not my favorite.
I'm kidding. Yeah, no shade to the Java developers out there. We love you too.
I don't like the syntax. It's not a bad programming language, but I don't like the syntax. I mean, I never liked the syntax. But
right.
As we said before, it's a common, secret that a good programming can write in any programming language. You can pick up a programming language really easily, especially when you don't have to deal with graphics and that stuff. If it's a command line utility, it's good.
Except Haskell. Man, every time I pick up Haskell, I'm like, I don't know what the heck's going on.
Yes.
I digress.
Yes, I have tried to learn Elixir and Erlang, but they require a different kind of thinking. They are good, especially Erlang. Erlang was used for telephone initially, but its high availability and all these things, it's really powerful. But you have to like it, and or you have to read it again and like it in the process. So I mainly write Python and Go, and I'm learning other languages. I mean, I want to write a tutorial about the V programming language. Haven't heard it before, but it's a good way of learning it.
Yeah.
And I like Rust, but the syntax of Rust is really bizarre. I don't know. Have you tried Rust?
I've played around on some playgrounds, and I've read. Actually, I read in the early days when Rust was like, I think pre 1.0. I tried to get into it, and since then, there's been some improvements in terms of some things that were kind of weird in the beginning. They've refined those things, so I need to give it another go. I need to give it another try. A lot of things have been sort of smoothed out, but if I add one more thing on my plate, I'll probably just fall apart. Like there's so many balls in the air right now. Like that's my excuse right now. And it's a legitimate one. I have so many projects going on. I'm like, okay, before I can add on one more thing, right, to my plate, I have to take one off, right? I have to be done with one project before I take on another one, right? So that's how I'm keeping myself honest. But yeah, it's definitely Rust is on my to learn list. Basically, I try to pick up a new language every 2 or 3 years. The last one I picked was Go, and I've stuck with that for the last 4 or 5 years or so. Yeah, now it's time to pick up something new. Definitely not leaving behind Go for sure. Not by a long shot. Go is still my daily bread. It's still what I use for work every day. It's still what I use for my side projects. It's my thing. But it's always good to learn, right? Something new, and it brings in a different sort of a lens which to look at problems. So definitely Rust is on my list. Actually, before diving into Go, I actually started picking up Elixir as well, only because some of the same folks that were sort of in the Ruby community basically sort of were either working on Elixir or somehow involved in that community as well. So I did a ton of Ruby back then, so naturally I heard about Elixir and everything else, and started to learn about Erlang and the Beam, a virtual machine, and all that stuff. So I learned like a good deal about that stuff. And then I met Go, and then pretty much all others were cast aside once I learned about Go. But definitely, I think I'm at the point where adding something new to the mix. Always be learning. That's how you grow. Always be learning.
Yes. And I have, I usually when I want to learn a programming language, I start writing small Unix command line utilities first to see how it goes. I usually do that.
Right.
I mean, it's my way of learning. And then I might go to a REST API server or client and see how it goes. Because that's the kind of things that I usually work with. So it doesn't make any sense to write something totally, different.
Yep, indeed. All right, so we're going to switch it over to unpopular opinion. And I'm told I need to play a tune. So here we go.
Okay.
I'm going to start playing my tune.
I actually think you should probably leave.
All right. So you brought some heat. Let's hear it.
Okay. I mean, I have two smaller ones, but the first one is that most meetings can't be replaced by emails.
Right. You just send an email. Yeah. I mean, I don't think that's going to be unpopular at all. A lot of meetings could have been an email.
Yeah. And the second one is that C is the best programming language ever.
Ooh. Okay. All right. Let me mull on that for a second.
If I have to choose a single programming language to live with, that would definitely be C.
That would be C, huh? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Not C++, just C.
Just C. You like managing your own memory on that stuff, huh?
No, I don't anymore. But back then it was not easy to have garbage collection or automatic memory management. So otherwise we wouldn't have Unix, and that would be a shame.
Okay. I mean, if you didn't have a choice, if you're gonna write C, I mean, you'll probably, this is close to the metal, as they say, you're gonna get, unless you want to start writing assembly or something. But
yes, exactly. Exactly.
I can see that. Okay. Well, gosh.
What's your favorite programming language of all time? I mean, if you have to pick one.
Oh, I mean, clearly, it's going to be Go. That's the language I use. Again, you're going to have maybe repeat myself. I use it in my day job. I use it on my side projects. I use it for my side project. I mean, the Go is like my go-to. That's the first thing I think of. Even for things that I used to write sort of a quick bash or a shell script for or whatever. Or, I used to rely on Ruby for a lot of my, little script to do, knickknacks here and there. Because the compiler and Go is so fast, right? I get that feedback immediately, and I get type safety and all that stuff. So like I've replaced basically even like the random little scripts I used to write, I've replaced all that stuff with just Go. So it's quite possible that I'm now using Go as a hammer to hit every nail, but it makes it so easy, right, for me to do that. But obviously, again, right tool for the job. So depending on what project I'm working on, if there's already a language that's being used that's not Go, I adapt to that, right? So in my repertoire, I have at least 6-7 different languages. So every once in a while, I'll come across something that, okay, man, I haven't written Lua in ages, but this thing is written in Lua now. I got to, brush off my Lua, right? So, or be it Java or reading Python and whatever it is, right? So I think the key takeaway here really is sometimes you don't get to pick the best tool for the job. And perhaps that is my unpopular opinion, right? You don't always get to pick the best tool for the job. Sometimes the tool that was picked is maybe even the worst possible tool that could have been picked for the job, but that was the tool that was used, right? So now you have to deal with it, right?
Yes.
So the unpopular opinion is suck it up, buttercup. It is what it is. Sometimes you just have to do what you got to do, right?
Sometimes people choose the tools for you, and you have to, use them.
Yeah, exactly.
That's true. That's true.
That is exactly it. So, Mihalis, thank you so much for being on the show. Yeah, I'm definitely enjoying the book.
Thank you.
The first thing I did when I got the book, I went straight to the generics stuff and see how did you explain generics and whatnot, and you did a pretty decent job of that. So yeah, for those looking to buy the book, it's available on all the major publisher sites and Amazon and all that,
yes.
and all that stuff. I think it's already out and ready to be shipped or something. But yeah, this is the third edition of the book. I've been enjoying it, so thank you for your contribution to the Go community. And yeah, looking forward to more from you, and looking forward to your active participation of the community as well.
So thank you very much, and thank you very much for your kind words. I really enjoyed being here. And maybe we can talk again in the future.
Yes, indeed. Well, if you keep writing these books, I'm going to keep having you on. Come talk about them.
Thank you very much.
All right, y'all. It's been awesome. So let's put on some outro.
All right, that is our show for this week. Thanks for listening. And hey, shout out to everyone who helped with the big Go 1.18 release that dropped this week. Quite the achievement, y'all. If this is your first time listening, don't forget to subscribe at gotime.fm. There you'll also find our favorite episodes, a list of the most popular ones, and a request form where you can let us know what you want to hear about on the pod. Special thanks to Fastly once again for having our CDN back, or front, I guess, technically. Either way, check them out at fastly.com. And the Breakmaster Cylinder for keeping our beats farm fresh and glitching. That's all for now. We'll talk to you again next time on Go Time.